Once again, happy Mother's Day. And I want to say at the beginning of this homily that I hope the men and the fathers in this church will not take offense at me by the end of this homily. I am still for the fathers, I'm still for the men, but today is Mother's Day, and I'm all in for our mothers and for the women and for the girls in this church. Fathers, you will have your day, believe me. Father's Day shall come. We shall celebrate the fathers, the men, the boys. But today, it's for the women. I am very proud of my mother, very proud of my mother. And I am very proud of every mother in this church. Every intending mother, every woman, every girl, child. I am very proud of you all. What could have been of the church without women? What exactly could have been of us without our mothers? Without women, without a girl child? What could have been of the church? I mean, look at every society in the church. Look at every solidarity. Look at every group, every ministry in the church. You'll find more women. More women than men. If you find more men, fine, good. But I think generally, objectively, you would tend to find more women than men actively participating in the church. So what could have been of the church without the women? So to our mothers, and to every woman here, every girl, child here, you are the real MVP. You are the real MVP. You know, when you read child psychology, if you read Erik Erikson, if you read Jean Piaget, Winnicott, Kohlberg, every child psychologist makes specific reference to the mother-child relationship as the most basic and the most trustworthy relationship. Every one of them. They make reference to the mother-child relationship as the most basic, the most secured, the most trustworthy relationship in the life of the child. Because the child learns how to trust by trusting the mother. The child learns how to love by loving the mother and by being loved by the mother. So the mother is the most important person, the most important image in the life of the child. And that is why you find the attachment between the mother and the child. A very strong attachment. So motherhood represents love. Motherhood represents sacrifice. Motherhood represents productivity. And I want to believe, my dear friends, that mothers, women are the best organizers. They are the best organizers. You may disagree with me, but they are the best organizers. And you come to know exactly, that based on my own family upbringing, and my mother tends to know where everything is meant to be. She knows where everything is meant to be in the house. And not just where everything is meant to be, she knows the exact position where everything is meant to be. the sofas, the pictures on the wall, the dishes, the side tables. They have this sense of organization, and things must have to be orderly. You must have to keep them where they ought to be, and don't shift them from where they ought to be. Because you don't mess with a home that has been organized by your mother. You do not mess with a home that has been organized by your mother, because they take the time to put the house in order. They take the time to do that. So you don't mess with that home. I am a priest today because of the sacrifice of my mother. She sustained our home when our father was out of job. My father lost his job, and my mother stood up to the challenge. She became a trader, she became a farmer, she became a gardener, she became a housekeeper, just to be able to pay our bills and to pay our school fees. So she was the reason why we could complete our education. She was the reason why I could complete my minor seminary education. And I know she'll be listening to me now. And when she would come to visit me in the minor seminary, because we had our visiting days, when she would come to visit me in the minor seminary, she may not come with a lot of things, but what was most important for me was her presence. That she was right there. She was always present with me, and she would give me a hug, and she would sit down and listen to my stories, to my complaints. She would listen to my experiences in the seminary. So she became for me my first therapist. She became my first counselor. She became my first teacher. Now, this is for our mothers. This is for the mothers in this church, for every intended mother, for every single mother, for every woman, for every girl child. God has given you a moral and spiritual authority that is so unique to you as a woman. And no one should take these authorities away from you. Not the government. Nobody should take these moral and spiritual authorities away from mothers. God has given you moral and spiritual authorities. Why moral authority? To speak truth in compassion to your children, to your family. To speak the truth in compassion, in love. Why spiritual authority? To lead your children, to lead your family to God. That is it. To lead your family to God. It is so important, my dear friend, because I know that this could be a difficult conversation, and I know that everybody must not be on the same page, because we've got our children today, we've got the young ones today who may not even believe in God, who may not even believe in the church, they may not be coming to church. I understand that. So it could be a difficult conversation, but all the same, it doesn't matter if they don't all agree with us. They must not agree with us. But that does not take away from the authority you have to go down on your knees and pray for your children. Because by praying for your children, you're praying for this generation. You're praying for our society. You're praying for our land. You're praying for our nation. So never stop praying for your children. That is your spiritual authority. Can a woman forget the child of her womb? No. So why are we to pray for them? Why would you use your spiritual authority? It is because we are fighting a spiritual battle. You are fighting to save the souls of your children. I mean, look at what happened in the first reading. Philip went to Samaria and he proclaimed Christ. And while he proclaimed Christ, what happened? Unclean spirits came out of those who were possessed. Unclean spirits. Do we know, my dear friends, that we talk about mental health problems, and we're right. We have real mental health problems. But beyond mental health problems, we also have very real, deep-seated spiritual health problems. Because we live in a time where our society is experiencing spiritual decay. So we have real spiritual health problems. The absence of God is a real spiritual health problem. The absence of the faith is a real spiritual health problem. The absence of objective truth. We live in a time where everybody has his or her own truth. Everybody has his or her own truth. So the absence of objective truth is a real spiritual health problem. So we've got in our hands very real spiritual health problems for which we need our mothers to stand in the gap. Because where you have this vacuum, definitely this vacuum could be filled up with unclean things. So when God is absent, for instance, when the truth is absent, when the faith is absent, there is a vacuum. That vacuum must be filled. And that is when unclean spirits come in to fill up the vacuum, because God is absent, because the truth is absent, because the faith is absent. Nature abhors vacuum. So we've got this vacuum in our society, moral vacuum. We have spiritual vacuum, and then unclean spirits will definitely fill up the vacuum. Imagine, my dear friends, how morally and spiritually unclean our society has become. I'll give you an experience I had at the hospital. I walked into this patient's room. I was called to provide the last rites for this patient. I was a chaplain at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. So this particular patient, the woman, she was to have liver transplant. But she was actually, they discovered that she had some pre-existing medical conditions. In fact, in the course of her hospitalization, they realized that she had developed congestive heart failure. So it was almost impossible to go ahead with with the liver transplant. Her numbers began to decline. I was called upon as a priest to provide the last rites. So I walked into the room, and what did I do? What I usually do is that I would call all family members. We form a cycle around the patient. So we held our hands together, and I asked each and every one of them to express their wishes for their mom. Just imagine your mother were to be listening to you. What would you have told her? So they expressed their emotions, the way they felt about what was happening. And at the end, I offered the last rites. The following day, the following morning, Steve, the husband, called me and said, Father Ambrose, guess what? My wife is still alive. She is still alive. There's a miracle. So he asked me, come back again. Please, we need you to come again to say some prayers. And I went the following day, said some prayers. Steve called me the other day and said, come back, let's say some prayers. It's like the more you pray, the more she gets, the more she is delivered or the more she stays alive. So I kept going, and it became a constant visit. Like I would go every day to meet with Steve and to meet with the wife. At this point, she was still unconscious, but she was climbing up the scale. So I kept praying, and that was how I got to know with the children, because they saw that their mother was now responding positively to the medical process, and they began to come closer to me. And because they were all surprised, they were all amazed. They had never seen this before. Even the medical team, they were all surprised that this could happen. Someone that was going down the drain, all of a sudden, she was now climbing up the scale. So how could you interpret this? How could you explain what has just happened, even when the medical process was already negative about her medical condition, but all of a sudden, there is this upsurge of response, and she was now responding to the medical process. God was now in the picture. And that was how the children began to come to me, and they began to tell me about their faith struggles, and that possibly God could have actually used their mother's condition to call them back to the faith. They told me this. It seems that God is saying something to us through our mother's condition. So guess what? When the woman finally recovered and she became conscious, I had a chat with her, and she told me this, that she had always prayed and advised her children to come back to church, to come back to God, but they wouldn't listen to her. But God had to use this near-death experience to wake them up from their spiritual slumber. They came to me for confessions. They are back to church. They are back to their God. It took this woman her life to save the souls of her children. That is motherhood. That is what we celebrate today. Because as far as the children are concerned, and as far as the family is concerned, there is no sacrifice too much for a mother. That is why you are the real MVP.